Hi, welcome to Kim's Art Show, episode 18. It's episode 18 and I'm still a little anxious and have the Sunday scaries every time before I record the show, even though we don't record on Mondays. You guys know what I mean. Because I want to do a good show and impart things that I think might matter to me and to you. And so I had been researching what would make the show interesting today and why am I doing the show? And I found some things that I just wanted to share about, like why we make art, that I saved. And so it was, please keep making art because it sharpens critical thinking through engaging memory, senses, and emotion all at once. Please keep making art because it lowers stress. 75% of people saw reduced cortisol after just 45 minutes of making art. Please keep making art because it heals attention in an age of distraction. And I love all of those thoughts about making art. And so here I am, even though I'm always afraid that I'm not going to have a result that I think is worthy. Like, it is a wonderful experience to come and paint, and hopefully it's getting you to paint too. Last week, I finished, when the show finished, I was further along in a piece of this dahlia flower farm in my town. And so I spent a lot of time on it. This would have taken maybe 3 or 4 more episodes to bring to this level. So here is where it ended up. The matte finish of gouache makes me really happy. And I really enjoyed spending a lot of time on it. Of course, when I was done, I was like, oh, I could have simplified this and changed that, but you can tell that it was fun in this cacophony of color and marks. So I'll have that on my website. So if you want to take a look at it more, or the original reference, flowers are fun. A flower garden is overwhelming, but in the best possible way. So it's episode 18, and we have been doing gouache again and again and again, and my greens are almost out, and I've had to refill them many times and go to the art supply store and get new ones. And so a lot of people have been saying, like, they've bought gouache. I'm all excited about that. One thing I've said about gouache is it plays well with other mediums, including my colored pencils that I've shown and love and used. So I brought those in today to play with. But I also brought a new medium, and it's the medium we're going to do next, and it's pastel. These are Prismacolor pastels. They are like the workhorse of pastels. They are hard and they are square. And this set has all their colors. And I've used it for years. Like I said, I ask for them for Christmas. And like, I put them back, but never quite right. And they get dusty and dirty, but they're great. And so if you're interested in painting along and want to play with pastels, that would be one of the first sets I would encourage you to invest in. Always invest in the most quantity that you can to start. You can't mix pastel as easily. And when you buy the first set of 12, when you buy the next set of like 36, sadly, only 24 are new because the original are included in the next set. So like this set is a complete set. And I think I got it on sale or for Christmas, but it was an investment that's lasted a long time. So what I want to do is show how to do a pastel on top of gouache. So we're going to do, guess what? A marsh, because I'm showing something new. But what I wanted to talk about too is in terms of learning to paint, learning art. This is the way that you should do it. You know, I always talk about best practices, and then like how I do it isn't necessarily the best, but you'll see like it starts with drawing because that way you flesh out composition and getting something to look the way that you want. And then pastel, and that can be oil or chalk pastel, also known as soft pastel. They are not chalk. They are compressed pigment with a binder, whereas chalk is a lot of filler and other things. Gouache, you know what that is, acrylic, and then oil. And oil is the last of the opaque mediums. Super fun, but it's like painting with butter, and it has its own chemical understanding. And so it's like I always say, if people try to paint oil before acrylic, it's like learning to drive a manual transmission before an automatic. And that shows how old I am. And then watercolor, the transparent one, is the last one because it's super hard and it's very almost impossible to fix mistakes. And you know, I've said it before that it's a pity that in kindergarten or early art experiences in school, you're given the little pools of watercolor and the first thing you do is make gray, yucky water and mess up all the things. And it's actually the most difficult medium in my experience. So we are going to be doing gouache and playing with pastel. So it's like if your experience is those little oval watercolors in a very inexpensive set and you think you can't paint, you probably can paint. It's that the materials are really hard. So onward. We are going to do the marsh, like I said, because it's something I'm super comfortable with. You've seen it before. And I'm going to want to demonstrate like the pastel on top of it. I'm going to try to get something done in one session. So back to like something we know. So let's see, tree bouquet over here, right? You know all my lingo if you've watched other episodes. Tree bouquet over here and horizontal that I'm making into a square because why not? But maybe I'm going to put water in a little bit bigger place over here. So just mapping out darks, lights. I love this part. Scribble, scribble. All right. I think that's all the info I need. Maybe over here, there's like a little purple selection. So I'm going to keep that as a note. So I don't have my little value study today. I forgot it, despite all my best efforts. Something tends to stay at home. Okay. Sky first from the top. Bigger brush. Again, like I'm kind of having my messy edges on the perimeter. It's okay. Eventually I'll bring in something that I frame and you'll see that with matting or clever framing, edge to edge, it takes on a different appearance, nice and tight and clean. But I kind of like that organic edge. Let's see. A little more water. It is a fun exercise in getting the paints to be the right consistency for what you want. At home, apart from the Dahlia piece that I worked on, I bought brushes that you cannot even believe how big they were. And I'm trying to work up the confidence to go into the field in my town with these brushes and see what I can do. Big, big, big on location. Because why not? However, it's because I'm scared. And the brushes are beautiful, and that's a thing. Sometimes I'm so overwhelmed by how pretty the art supplies are that I don't use them. How ridiculous. Oh, that's a nice deep dark. Might be too dark, but That's how we'll start, because that's also the area of the lightest light with the darkest dark. And it went in really fast because big brush. Okay, we know through atmospheric perspective that these colors are going to recede in the distance because they're cooler, lighter, duller. So I'm going to be teaching a couple of classes in a workshop locally to me here, and I'm really excited about it. And I'm like, but will I talk about anything new? Well, no, because painting isn't necessarily new, but it's kind of like what you do with it, and I'm excited about it. I'll be doing a workshop about color. Oh, one of my favorites. That was episode 7. That was all a deep dive into color. I'm percolating about an episode about composition, but not yet. It's kind of dry, but I know I can make it interesting. So when the paint isn't like beefy enough, it's like too watered down, it doesn't sit on the paper well. And so I need to just keep that in mind. You can keep it in mind too as you're mixing, that you want the paint to like sit on top. So don't use it too watered down. All right, and this kind of fades into a beautiful green. Oh, these colors are nice, like jewel tone. This one's kind of garish, but it's all right. I'm going to dull it down by putting in the complement. The complement to green is red. Red is super potent, so you know what it did, right? It made my green look entirely too red. All right, we're almost covered. Almost. I'm going to add some of this like purple loosestrife flower in it. Color's a little aggressive. And then there is this little water. And maybe I want to add some of the dark to the green on the side. Some colors are really potent, and so I have to make sure my brush is pretty clean or change my brush. All right, oh, what did I do that for? So, no worries, opaque medium. So I've covered the surface. Big shapes, kind of a mess. It's all right. Before I start to refine with the pastel, I am going to just make sure that I love the colors. Remember, that was one of my favorite critiques from realist painter George Nick. I had brought him up recently, and I had seen one of his originals at the Boston Athenaeum, which is this really beautiful private library in Boston. And then it was like very shortly after mentioning him and seeing that painting, I learned that he passed away. I think he was in his 90s. He was an important painter in my time at Mass Art. Like, I learned so much from him. So if you haven't looked him up, give him a look up. George Nick. Especially in terms of realism. Okay, so I'm going to use a smaller brush now, and I'm going to just refine a little bit more while the bulk of it dries, because pastel needs to go on top of dry paint. So maybe while I do that too, I'm going to use some of my colored pencils. because the colored pencil doesn't matter as much if the work is dry. Last time I was in recording, I brought my hairdryer to speed up drying, but I didn't bring it today, and that would be kind of a funny interlude, wouldn't it, while I dried the painting with a hairdryer. Right, so we have all these things in our artist toolbox. I am cleaning my brush, putting that aside, and now it's the pencils. So the colored pencils are opaque, but a little bit more translucent, like, you know, what's behind it will show up. But also, if I have a light color pencil, it doesn't really show up on top so much. So it shows up, but it's not like super bright. And remember, I did this in a few episodes where I am kind of, how do we say? I'm tightening it up, giving myself kind of this map. It's still pretty wet back here. So we need to let that dry a little bit more. Feels pretty good over here. So one thing we've talked about in pictorial space is these are all like marsh grasses, reeds and things. And right, when you walk into the marsh, like sometimes they're waist high. And as you get painting back here, right, there's still that same reed, but they are way back. And so my natural motion when I draw, right, is like kind of line, long line. And even when I use my brush, you'll see, like, see this mark? Like I always start with these long vertical marks. And so if I make this same mark in the background, that flattens the whole thing. And so what I tend to find is I make these big marks here, and then I have these kind of like dragging my brush horizontally across. And I usually need to figure out a segue between the foreground and the background, but keeping in mind that that foreground, things can be like bigger, more detailed, and then in the background, you want it to become blurry. You want your colors to be different. All right, so it's still a little shiny, but you can get different marks, right, from your pencil than you can from a brush, unless you have like a tiny little rigger brush or a liner and you're really deliberate. Now, I find like the benefit of my pencil is like the scribble and the speed. When I painted in France with that program that I talked about before, I had this professor who looked at my work and told me that I needed to paint on a different surface because I was fast. And I remember being kind of impressed that this person could just look at my painting when I wasn't there and know that I was fast. I was kind of flattered that that person was looking at my work that much too. And so I think what I've come to understand is maybe it's like this false confidence, but I am quick, and sometimes I'm held back by you know, like brushes or trying to say something that I can't, like that I can say much faster by drawing. So it's kind of dry. So what I want to do then is visit these pastels. And you'll see with pastels that like they're dusty, dirty. So I always use a glove, and usually just one, channeling my Michael Jackson, right? Another old person joke. And you never have the color that you want. you can make these beautiful, it's like scumbling in a different way. Let's see. It's kind of a little overwhelming because I've been so focused on gouache, gouache, gouache that to pick up a new medium, you know, is like, ooh, exciting. And while I did some this morning, you know, it's just never enough to feel competent, yet we've learned like confidence only comes through doing. So I have these trees in the background and I am just pulling, you can't really see it so much, like this blue that's pretty intense on top. And right, and I like that. Maybe you can feel that it's a little bit more vibrant. Let's see. I'm gonna let the sky dry just a little bit more, but let's venture into these sky holes with, let's see, with this kind of color, right? Like these little dots, you know, I talk so much about confidence and making these kinds of marks is so much easier in pastel than with a brush and gouache. And I just love experimenting with color and mark. And remember too, like these are all opaque and super easy to correct. Sometimes I have a little piece of paper and I would, maybe I'll just use this, right? Test, what does that color look like? Now too, this is a really forgiving medium. Anything that I do can be like covered over, played with, but all of these, gouache, pastel, most drawings, right, on papers, they need to be framed under glass and they can get a little bit fragile. So you'll want to make sure that they are, oh, pretty, handled with care until they're under glass. Okay. So in this set, I have a few different colors, different brands even, kind of like I do with the gouache set. All right, so we are pretty dry now, so I can do anything. So what color do I want to put in the sky? So it might not surprise you, but I've used up my sky color and I didn't replace it. So what am I going to do there? And sometimes pastels get dirty, so I just cleaned it on my rag and I am using the pastel on its side to kind of create this layered pinky tone, and then I blend into it. So pastel, it's a little stick, but look, I can make this mark that's super fine or bigger or bigger. So it's like in essence, that little stick can become almost every brush right here. Okay, let's see. I'm gonna get a nice light warm tone. Clean it off. So if I were doing a big piece outside with pastel, I would be okay. However, if I were doing a big piece in my studio with pastel, I would wear a mask because they are just pure pigment. And look, like if I don't, I had pastel on my hand. If I don't like something, I can always blend it. Pastel lets you blend, but the thing is you don't want to blend too much. Okay. So we need to play with these greens. How can I make them move through space and feel believable? Oh, this is a nice light one. So where might it be light? Over here. And see how pastel really speaks to like my inherent mark making. You know, that kind of like slashy, vertical, they get along really well. So over here, right, so sometimes I want to do it by its side, but see how it leaves a different mark? Still good, just different. And I talked before about sometimes we want to complicate things and then simplify. And I think that the more I go over that in my head, the more I'm like, that was good advice. Because we do want to like refine, and then be like, ooh, I said too much. So then look, like I can blend it with my finger and simplify. Foreground. I think I want that darker, warmer. And it's the struggle of, do I have that color? I always do this. I'll have like 1,000 pastels and I pick up a color and I'm like, that's it. And it's a color that I've already used. But see, on its side, look at that. I just went over the whole thing. Simplify, simplify. And see, I keep pulling them out so I know which ones I've used before. So we think about that gouache as the underpainting. And I can do these kind of like, see, this is a really bold orange. Like, look at what happens to that orange with that pastel on the top. So you can get a very good sense of how these play together. And there's so many colors in this set that, you know, it's all you need to get so many subjects of painting done. You know, so many, like if I start so many mediums, then it's like I need, I want all those colors. With pastel, like there are so many different brands you can get. And NuPastel is a great way to start. So it's scribbly, but it's very much how I work. And if I want with my finger, I can refine some. But you know, I kind of like the rawness. Right, and then the impact of just a few marks. So for our first venture into a new medium with an old medium, I'd say this was pretty successful. So get some NuPastels, NuPastel, not N-E-W. I'll have the information on my website. Makes me happy. Color makes me happy. And so you can imagine when I play with pastels, how exciting that is. And like how vibrant these colors are. I get vibrant gouache, but gosh, nothing vibrates like pastel on top of other color. And it works up so fast. I keep playing, adding kind of other tones because I can't help myself. Cover over. And so, gouache with pastel, happy together. A marsh, my happy place. So for episode 18, we have this very colorful, vibrant piece that kind of gets me excited about things to come. So thank you so much for watching. Go get some pastels.